Well, whoever follows me on TikTok here or on other platforms that I use, specifically Facebook, I talked about my mother's involvement in two crises over the years before she died. In 1961, when she was pregnant with me, then we lived in Ukraine, former Soviet Union. She trained Cuban forces to control ballistic missiles. In the city of Kharkiv, there was a laboratory and a factory that would produce control systems for ballistic missiles that are usually controlled from the ground in a computer by computer. Okay. It was during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1961, 1962, with the President Kennedy. And she, as I said, as a young engineer, she worked for the Soviet ballistic missile program, and she was training Cubans in 1961. Second, 20 years later, in 1982-83, my mother's Bulgarian husband, who was an engineer by himself, worked in Angola in the university, and my mother went as a second family member in Angola. It's Angola, Africa. And for about a year, the same people that were trained in the former Soviet Union during Cuban Missile Crisis were sent by Castro to Angola to fight against South Africa, including the ballistic missile forces. So my mother had kind of a connection with the Cubans at the time, even though she wasn't Cuban. As I said, my mother recently died. Well, recently, almost 3 years ago, but she was murdered, in my opinion. And there's a lot of answers I need to have, and this is one of those answers. She participated in operations during the Cold War as a young engineer. And what bothers me currently is when I look back at the Cold War and Cuban Missile Crisis, the Cubans were supposed to use Russian systems and Russian ballistic missiles, Soviet ballistic missiles. It was really short from Cuba to Washington, D.C., so they were supposed to hit the U.S. Capitol. But what Trump did, he turned Miami into a second White House. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure he knows what he's doing, but yet, if you think about it this way, the flight of a ballistic missile from Cuba to Miami, it's about a minute. If from Cuba to the United States territory, it's 90 miles. So I don't know how fast exactly now ballistic missiles fly, but I'm absolutely sure that with the new technology, it's like less than a minute, maybe. But this is Key West. But if Miami, I have no idea. Okay, at half a minute or something. But my point is very simple. Isn't it dangerous for a United States president to have a residency within a minute strike in case of war? I don't know now, as I said, how Cubans are with the United States. Before, I remember when Obama was in power, he lifted sanctions, and then after Obama, they were reinstated. So I don't know what's the deal actually, honestly, with the Cubans, with the Cuba in general relationship today. But what I heard over the radio, over the internet today, it's about, a lot of people can be deported. Is something coming? So my point is again, Miami is not exactly, I think, it's a safe place when we're talking about missile strikes. And not just that. Remember the impulse weapons that I'm talking about all the time? And there is a thing called Havana syndrome. It's Havana, the capital of Cuba. And there were several impulse weapons hits in Miami. So what's going on there? there's a lot of questions to be asked specifically. We are entering a new Cold War. And as I said, whatever people say about Trump, I watched the guy for a while. It's a time in the United States of almost 40 years. And actually, he caught my attention very, very early when I'm in the States in the late 80s. And I said, this guy gonna be something, because there was something about him that caught my attention right there. Plus, his even choice of women, Ivanka, his first wife, was one of the most intelligent people that I saw in the wife areas of the elite. She was really smart. I mean, she's Czech, but in general, they're all Czech. Those are area of Czech Republic and Slovakia. This is the area of the former Roman Empire's province called Ruthenia. This is the area of old, old magic in a way, and so there was an uprising during the Roman Empire, and the Roman Legion refused to go to stop the uprising because, as I said, there was a lot of mystery there. It's a very interesting region, but his wife was from. And she was, when I saw them first, they caught my attention, but they were like what people call power couple. Ivanka and him were, for sure. As I said, first time I saw them. But anyway, I'm kind of drifting away, from the point. It's dangerous area in case of conflict with Cuba. It's going to be less than a minute when ballistic missile will hit. You see what I mean?